I joined the bank in 1966, 3 years after I came to Australia. And by 12th of September 1966.
Clear as day.
Yeah.
Clear as day.
That was the day my life changed. And I promised myself then, having $20 in the bank, that will never happen again. It will never happen again. The bottom line is, if you are not talking to them, someone else is.
Yes.
Another bank is. At the end of the day, you make your own destiny. You control your own destiny. You make your decisions, whether they're right or wrong, and along the way, there will be some down. You can't be up all the time. There will be some hiccups. But at the end of the day, if the pluses are better than the minus, you stay in front.
In this episode, I sit down with my good friend Henry Habekost, founder of Asia Link Capital, a leading finance broking company in Australia. Henry is an absolute titan when it comes to the banking and finance industry. His experience spans more than 50 years across a multitude of roles, culminating in being appointed as Head of Migrant Banking for one of the big four banks, with a footprint right across the country and into the Asia-Pacific region. That said, this is his first ever in-depth one-to-one conversation of any kind, and he was so gracious to sit down with us to deep dive into his entire personal journey and to share his way of life. All I will say for now is that Henry is a man well lived, and he will be sharing intimate stories that he has never shared before publicly. In short, you are in for an amazing ride. We had a great time with Henry, and we trust you will too. Please enjoy this episode of The Way with Cheech Foo, featuring Henry Habekost. Welcome, Henry. Welcome to the podcast. How are you, my man?
I'm pretty good. My body's a bit sore after playing 2 hours of badminton last night, but by this afternoon, I hope I'll recover. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I did hear that you went up against some pretty formidable opponents.
Yes.
Is that right?
Oh, yes, we get some of the state players every now, or some ex-state players as well, coming down to play as well.
Yeah.
But by the time you finish 2 hours, you get a good workout.
Whereabouts do you normally play? Do you have a home?
I play with 3 clubs. Last night we played at the Girraween Sports Complex in Hainsworth Avenue. Wednesday night I'll play at the Sports Complex near Swan Districts Football Club.
Yep.
And on Friday I'll play at the Sports Complex in Light Street, Dianella. I play about 7 hours total a week.
That's actually pretty intense.
My wife tells me I'm mad. When I walk home after the games and I tell her my body's sore, and she turns around and says, "Well, you think you're 25 still?" So.
Well, the thing is actually, like, I think for those true badminton fans, and I know quite a few of them, right? It's almost force of habit. Do you know what I mean? Like, they just can't stop going to it. Like, they will go 3 times a week, and if they don't go, like, say for example, they miss out one session, right? They feel that they've really kind of dropped the ball.
Well, at my age, if I miss out sessions, it takes me longer to get back in. Yeah. It's a slower recovery process, but no, I've played sport all my life, and my philosophy is you keep doing what you do as long as you can.
Yeah.
Regardless whether it's sport or work.
Work. And look, we're definitely going to get into the work side of things, right? Definitely have a bit of chat about your illustrious career when it comes to banking with one of the largest banks in Australia. And then after that, of course, how you kind of struck out on your own, right, as an entrepreneur. But I would like to perhaps, kind of wind it back and start from the beginning, because I think that you have a very interesting story to tell, and I really want the listeners and the viewers to truly understand you. So if you can, let's just start from the beginning. And who is Henry Habekost? Where were you born? Let's start from there, your journey.
Well, my background started in Malaysia. I was born in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. My father's German and my mother's Dutch. My father's father was an engineer who worked in Singapore, and my mother's father, who was a doctor, had a practice in Malaysia. So that's where they met. And that's where my sister and I were born. I went to a Christian Brothers College, and my sister went to a convent. And we did the English school leaving in Malaysia. I grew up and I was educated in Malaysia. In Malaysia, I had a high profile in athletics.
Yep.
I represented the state. I was school sports captain. I was school prefect. I was school champion athlete. I played soccer. I played hockey, and I was pretty prominent in athletics. I could run 100 meters in 10.3.
Yep. Impressive.
So, and yeah, I traveled all over Asia and especially Malaysia in athletics. I held some records there, particularly long jump.
And which institution, which educational institution did you go to when you were in KL? So
no, I didn't go to school in KL. My father was a mining and mechanical engineer, and he moved around in the mining industry for the American tin mines. Every 3 years, we were in a different state.
Right.
Under contract, he worked. And when we started school, my sister and I, we moved to a central town in Malaysia called Seremban. And my mother, being a headmistress, said, you finish your schooling in one school. You don't move.
In Seremban.
Seremban.
Yeah.
So that's where I went. I went to a Christian Brothers college there.
And what's the name of the college?
St. Paul's Institution.
St. Paul's Institution. Okay. And just for the record, right, Seremban is a town near Kuala Lumpur.
So right now with the new freeways, it's about 15 to 20 minutes from Kuala Lumpur.
Yeah. But back then?
It's the capital of the state of Negeri Sembilan.
Okay. So you had your schooling in Seremban, right, in St. Paul Institution. And that kind of took you all the way up to high school. Now, before we go on, right, I can't help but ask, right? I mean, this must have been quite a few years ago, right? And maybe now it's more prevalent, to have a lot of diverse individuals and families living and working and growing up in Malaysia, right? How was it like, to be from a family of Dutch, German, right? Growing up in Malaysia, it must have been quite different. Can you share a little bit about what that life was like growing up in Malaysia, of all places?
We actually had a very good life, especially a lot of it was passed down from my grandfather, who was the doctor. And we had a good life. Our hometown was about 4 k's out of the town, and we lived on a 4-acre property. And we had so much land there that when I was growing up in sports, we had our own training tracks and our own sports field with cricket and soccer and badminton.
That's crazy.
And I could train and practice my pole vault and long jump and everything on that property.
Wow.
And we also had a 12-acre holiday property at Port Dickson, right on the ocean front, where we used to go for school holidays with friends and cousins and everything. So growing up, I think we had the best of both worlds. Yeah,
the best of both worlds. So that was high school, right? And then you, as you said, you travel a lot around Asia, right, to participate in different championships. You mentioned it was long jump. Was it mainly, or a variety of different sports that you?
No, it was. I moved around mainly in athletics.
In athletics.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, and I held school records like in pole vault and long jump and all that.
Yep.
I was told by the school that it took like 23 and 24 years later to break. So yes, so the results in athletics were pretty good, and it lifted my profile in Malaysia, and especially in our hometown. I was pretty well known.
Pretty well known, is it? Okay, there you go. A star in the making, as they say.
In fact, it was quite interesting because after I finished my school leaving, I did my Form 6, the GCE, that's university entrance.
Yep.
And I applied for teaching scholarship, and I was selected. And during my interview with the government for my teaching scholarship, the whole interview was not about what I was going to teach. It was all about where are you competing next week in sports, and where are you going for the next athletic meet. That was my interview.
That was your interview.
That was all about my interview for half an hour, and when the results came out, I was number 2 on the top. So it was quite interesting, right?
That was quite hilarious. Like your how do you say, your reputation already has started to precede you.
Yeah, they knew who I was. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Or the interviewers, there were 6 of them across the table, and they all knew who I was.
Yeah. I mean, were you one of those whereby you naturally gravitated towards sports and athletics, right? Or was it something that, like, say, for example, your parents kind of, nudge you towards?
No, this is...
and then it grew.
Believe it or not, my mother never saw me ever compete. She never ever saw me compete. But her brother, who was a doctor, he used to come to every sports meet with me, and after the meeting, all the trophies were on the ground. He'd tell me to wait, go home, bring a car, and put all the trophies in the car. But my mother never ever saw me compete. I don't know why. She just wasn't a sports person.
Yeah, so you never really talked to her about it, never asked why you never came. Right.
But my uncle, he followed me around everywhere. Yeah.
Your number one fan. So that was high school?
Yeah, high school.
Yeah, that was high school. Okay. So once you finished high school, what was next?
I became a school teacher.
Okay.
And our whole family, my mother's a retired headmistress, my sister's a retired headmistress here in Perth now, my brother-in-law here now is a retired maths master from John Forrest High School. My uncle was a retired headmaster in Port Dickson in Malaysia. Look, there was school teachers all over our family. So I taught for just over 4 years, and one day I thought to myself, there's got to be something better than this.
What were you teaching, by the way? Just real quick.
I specialized in physical education, sports and everything, and I was the head coach over this St. Paul's, because I went back to my old school to teach, and I looked after the sports teams, and I taught English and biology
as well.
But yeah, after 4 years, I thought it had to be something better than this, so that's what brought me to Australia.
Okay, so you were thinking you were wanting a bit of a change.
Yeah, I thought I felt as though I had to try something different, and the main reason was. Apart from teaching in the school, at night, I used to teach further education biology, and that's like the Perth TAFE here.
Okay, so vocational.
Yeah, I used to teach people who were 50 years older than me and all, because at that time I was about 18 and 19 and 20. Yeah. And I used to teach at further education at night school, and some of the people that used to come to those courses, especially the younger ones, their behavior wasn't the best, and that's what sort of put me off teaching.
A bit rebellious, just not really.
And I had to pull some of them up with arguments that didn't suit me.
Not pleasant times.
No.
Yeah. That makes sense.
So that sort of started getting me thinking about school teaching.
Okay. Now, would you be okay with kind of time stamping that for us? What year was that when you became a school teacher?
1958.
1958.
And I'll go back. That was 1957.
Yep.
And I came to Australia in 1963.
1963. Why Australia? And where in Australia did you?
Perth. Came to Perth.
Okay.
Yeah, because
straight to Perth. Yeah.
I had my auntie and her family here, my mother's sister. I had other relations here in Perth. Mm-hmm. We had relations in the family in Melbourne and in Perth.
Okay. So you got to Perth, right? Did you have an idea of what you wanted to do? Like, was there a plan?
I started doing accountancy. But while I was doing that, I also got involved in flying. And I started training at the Royal Flying School at Perth Airport.
Right.
And I kept on with that, and I got my license in flying. I was flying aeroplanes.
Yeah. What type of license? Does it have a specific designation? The pilot license?
Oh. Yeah. Yeah, it was a private license.
Okay.
And from that, I was taking more flying to get up into the higher grade, because the idea crossed my mind that maybe if I got my hours up and I got to a certain level, I could try and get into flying for Singapore Airlines.
As a pilot?
Yes.
I see.
And while I was doing that, I was also studying accountancy.
Yep.
And I did a couple of jobs on the side. I worked at Western Motors. I worked in a factory in Melville making gaskets for cars and all this, just to earn extra money. And flying is not that cheap. It got to the point that I had $20 left in the bank.
Wow.
And I was on my own in Australia. And at that point, I got into a band called the Troubadours to play music with them.
Okay. Now, before you go to the Troubadours, right, which I'm actually very excited about, can you share with our listeners and viewers, right, what does it actually take to actually, be part of a flying school? So you said it's expensive, right? But it also must be also very time consuming. Can you share a little bit more about the regular activities that you go through?
I was training every week.
Okay. Now, what does that mean? Waking up early?
And I was training with a training pilot who's an instructor.
All right.
And I was up in planes, taking off and landing at Perth Airport every week.
Right.
And apart from that, there were a lot of practical tests and exams to do. So I was doing practical work and tests on all segments of flying: engines, engineering, flying, radiology, formations of clouds, and you name it. I had to do assignments. And I think I was going pretty well because most of my assignments averaged between 70 to 100.
There you go.
So the marks were very good. And this sort of things kept me going.
Yep.
Until one day I was having breakfast with my landlady and she said, "Oh, have you had a look at this in the papers?" And it was an advert for someone to join a bank. And it was the Commercial Banking Company of Sydney, which had 7 branches in the state, and it was the second oldest bank in Australia.
Commercial
Banking Company of Sydney. Second oldest bank in Australia by 2 years. The oldest bank was the Bank of New South Wales.
Wow. I must admit, I actually don't even know or have even heard of both of these banks before. Can you share a little bit more?
Yeah, so I joined the Commercial Banking Company of Sydney.
Okay.
My first job in the bank, because I actually rang him up to apply, and he said, "Look, come in," and state manager said, "Come in and see me in St. George's Terrace.
Yep.
Bring in all your qualifications," which I did. An hour later, I walked out of his office, and he got me to fill out some forms.
Yep.
2 days later, he rang me and said, "I got a reply back from head office in Sydney." He said, "You can start when you want." And that sort of took me back because I was getting more focused on flying because my idea then was to become a commercial pilot.
So that was almost a determination at that point. And this banking thing, was it just because your family member,
my landlady,
asked
talked
you
me into applying.
Okay.
I never planned ever in my life to be a banker. Never.
She must have been pretty persuasive then too.
Yeah, she was my mother's cousin. She was a lovely lady. So from that day when I got the reply from the Commercial Bank of Sydney, I took 2 weeks to think about it, and I rang him back and I said, "All right, I'll take it." And my plan was to maybe stay for 3 years, finish my accounting degree, because he told me at the interview, he said, "You've got the ability to study, and if you study degrees that are acceptable to the bank, the bank will pay for it."
So you haven't even graduated at that point?
Halfway through.
Halfway through. Okay. Was it a 3-year or 4-year degree at that time?
I can't quite remember. I think it might have been 4.
Okay, 4 years. Okay. So you're halfway through, you got accepted, right? And then they said, okay, if you continue your accounting studies that was relevant to banking, they will.
It also crossed my mind that if I join this bank, and if I stay maybe for 3 years, finish my accounting degree, maybe I want to work for myself as an accountant, so they can pay for my future.
Why not?
Well, this is it. So I accepted the job.
Yep.
But I kept flying as well at the same time.
Okay. Were you still trying to keep that dream alive, like at that point in time, right?
Sort of. Yeah. Yes. And when I joined the bank, I started at the bottom. My first job was putting stamps on envelopes and walking around St. George's Terrace and Perth delivering mail and all this.
Wow.
But the bank took over my accounting course, my accounting degree. They took over the cost. They paid for that. And I moved pretty quickly from there.
Okay.
From sticking stamps on envelopes, within 3 months, I was the number 1 head teller in head office in Perth. I moved through ledger supervisor within that time. I moved through general banking.
Yep.
things in that time, and I became head teller.
Okay. Now, which year was this? Just so we can understand
I
the
joined the
context.
bank. I joined the bank in 1966.
1966.
3 years after I came to Australia.
Okay.
And by 12th of September 1966.
Clear as day.
Yeah.
Clear as day.
That was the day my life changed.
Yeah.
And I promised myself then, having $20 in the bank, that will never happen again. It will never happen again. And at that time, too, I started playing with the band, the Troubadours.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And I was playing with them.
Yeah.
And my first gig with them was at the Raffles Hotel. I remember that clearly.
Iconic.
Yep. And then a few months later, the state manager called me into his office and he said to me, we hear that you're playing in a band 3 and 4 nights a week. And I said, yes, I was. So he asked me about it. I told him who I was playing with, and I was the lead guitarist and the lead singer. And we had a chat, and he said, look, he was a great man, this fella. He actually set my life on track.
Okay.
And he said to me, if you make sure that the band does not interfere with your bank work, I'll make sure that the bank does not interfere with your music. And that's how it was. I kept playing. I was making more money in the band than I was making in the bank at that time. And things started to improve,
Wow. So this particular, would you call him your very first mentor, almost?
He's retired from the bank a long time ago. And he moved over to Perth up in the hills, and he was living in the hills.
Okay.
I don't know if he's alive still.
Okay. Would you like to give him a shout out? Only if you want to.
His name was John Wilson.
John Wilson. At that point in time, John Wilson, right, was he a direct manager or was he just someone?
He was a state manager.
He was a state manager.
But bear in mind, the Commercial Banking Company of Sydney was huge on the eastern seaboard. Sydney, but in Perth, branches were just opening up.
Yep.
And we ended up with 7 branches in the state.
Yeah. Now, listeners and viewers will be curious to find out, you mentioned that you kind of made your way pretty quickly up the ranks, right? From envelopes, right, to head teller. How was that experience? And what do you mean when they said they put you on a fast track? Just so we can really understand how that happened. Yeah.
I kept studying to finish my accounting degree, which I did.
Yep.
And when I finished that, I carried on and I did a degree in banking and finance. And the bank paid for that. And then I did a master's degree.
Yep.
And the bank paid for that.
Yep.
And after 7 years of study, I thought, I really need to get down to work now and not so much study. Because at that time, I had met my present wife. Because after I played with the Troubadours and then I left the Troubadours, I formed my own band, Focus. And I played with that band for 23 years. Focus.
Okay.
We made a lot of money out of the band. We played all the big shows in Perth. We used to get flown up to Kununurra to play in the Ord Festival in Kununurra, all the big shows.
Wow.
We signed contracts to play for P&O Shipping Company. With that band, we played on P&O ship cruises and all that. And in that band, we were playing one night at the Cottesloe Hotel. And my drummer was an Irishman. He was a draftsperson, and he was working for a company in West Perth, W.J. Spencer and Associates. That name I'll never forget. Because my wife and her best friend came from New Zealand to Perth on their way through to England, you see. And to get more money, they took jobs in Perth. And my wife was a draftsperson as well in hydraulics. So she joined the same company. And our drummer said to her, working in the same room, he said, look, if you and your girlfriend are not doing anything tonight on Friday night, come to the Cottesloe Hotel. I play in the band, I'm the drummer. Come to the hotel. So she went home and spoke to her girlfriend, and the bus route stopped right outside their flat in Nedlands. So they jumped on the bus, came to the Cottesloe Hotel. I was halfway through singing Proud Mary and playing, and he jumps up and waves his hands, and I had to tell him to sit back on the drums. So he got them over to our table. Yeah, and my wife never went to England.
Love at first sight?
Well,
Was it
quite interesting.
interesting?
I took a girlfriend out first before I took her out.
I was about to say.
Yeah, and yeah, we've now been married 53 years.
Wow. Wow, that is really sweet. Yeah. What's your wife's name again?
Gail.
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 Gail Habekost.
Yeah, she's my backbone.
How important is it to have a backbone? Like, you know,
Very
like
important.
that in your life?
Very important. We practice 2 nights a week, playing, average 3 nights a week. And she put up with all that. Yeah, she put up with all that, and now she's always put up with all the things that I've done and what I've done, and
all your pursuits.
Yeah, pursuits. Now she's been great.
Yeah. I mean, I also say exactly the same with my wife as an entrepreneur. Right, our lives are just so chaotic.
Exactly.
It's like insane. Like there is no same day. Like some people keep asking me, oh, so Cheech, like, you know, how's your day like every day? And I tell them, and this is like real, right? I tell them that I feel like I'm on, like, you know, Disneyland every day, like in a roller coaster. Like, you know, you think that this week's gonna be great, and then all of a sudden tomorrow, right, something would happen, and then you just have to reorient your entire schedule, right, to actually solve that problem. So having a partner like that, right, that can truly not just empathize and sympathize, but actually be there and support you and encourage you. I think that's a bit of a difference. Like, yeah.
Because even playing in music, we were playing all over the state. We would play jobs up north, down south, and everywhere, because we played with focus. We played the big shows. Even playing in those days, that's about.
What's your biggest show? What's the biggest or most memorable show that you ever did?
Playing for P&O Shipping Company on their cruises. Yeah. We went around we did a cruise, for example, 2 weeks around the South Pacific, all the islands, everywhere. And that was a 2-week cruise. They flew us to Sydney with all the equipment on a plane. Then after the show, we collected a big check off them, and they flew us back to Perth. And in fact, while on that cruise, we went to Noumea, Solomon Islands, Suva, New Hebrides, all whole South Pacific. And when we stopped at Suva, in the evening we went into the biggest hotel in Suva, which was called the Trade Winds. We went into the Trade Winds and talking to people in there with the band. And in fact, my wife came on that cruise, and we're sitting down there having a drink, and the owner of the hotel comes up to me and he says, I believe you are the guest band on the Arcadia. I said, yeah. Do you mind if I ask you all to go up and play for us? And they had a good Fijian band there. Spoke to the boys, and they said, yeah, let's go up and play. So we went up to the stage, told the Fijian band to get off the stage, took over their instruments, the keyboards and the guitars and drums and all. And for 45 minutes, we absolutely rocked that hotel. People were coming in off the street to listen and everything. It was just packed. Yeah, that was some trip.
What does music mean to you?
I never sold all my equipment and all this after I stopped playing about, what would be now, about 25, 30 years ago. I've still got all my equipment at home. My Gretsch guitar is signed by Chet Atkins. That's never for sale.
Yours forever.
Yeah. I've had offers to buy it off me for thousands. It's not for sale. I've got all my equipment, all the speakers, the power staff. And my wife, the last 6 or so years now, she's learned to play the piano. She's taking piano lessons. So, yeah, I pull my equipment out and I play with her to give her practice. But I'm still in touch with all the old band boys from Focus. Most of the band boys from Troubadours have passed away, but now we're still in touch.
Okay.
In fact, music has given me a lot of friends and a lot of connections.
Big part of your life, yeah?
Yeah, oh yes. It also made me a lot of money.
Yeah, that's helpful.
So, yeah, with the bank and with music, it's set my life up with my family.
At the bank, right, they put you on the fast track. Okay. Now, your journey is not over yet, because you managed to reach some of the heights that very few people have reached, right, in Australian banking. Can you share your next journey of how you became from just a head teller, right, to the head of Asian banking for one of the largest banks in Australia? Give us that journey.
Yeah, after being the head teller in head office in the bank, the Commercial Bank of Sydney, they moved me very quickly and they made me manager of the Commercial Bank of Sydney in Midland.
Okay.
That was my first job. And I never went to a first level manager. They moved me straight to a second level manager because there were 3 levels.
3 levels.
They moved me straight up to
second.
Second level. Because the Commercial Banking Company of Sydney state manager said to me that at that time, they were considering closing down Midland. It just wasn't functioning. There was a manager there for 4 years. It was a new branch. And he spoke to me and said, we believe that if you go out there, it might change. So they gave me the job and I went out there. I had about 10 on the staff. No, sorry, I had 7 on the staff. And in 4 years, I grew it to 10 on the staff. And we increased the turnover of that branch 400% and put it into profit. But while I was there were mergers of 4 big banks in Australia.
Okay.
The Commercial Banking Company of Sydney merged with the old National Bank of Australia. The Bank of New South Wales merged with the old CBA Bank. That formed the current Westpac. And the CBC and the old National formed what's now National Australia Bank. And I was the first manager to be moved from the old CBC branch into a national branch. I went in City Markets branch. And that branch, because our biggest clients were the whole Perth markets that were in Wellington Street then.
Yep.
And that branch also gave me my first hold up.
Okay.
We were held up there. And
you were held up?
Oh, yeah. A chap came in with a shotgun, pointed to the teller's house to clear all the money. And
wow.
I walked outside for something and I saw this happening.
Yep.
And I went back into my office because in those days we carried guns.
Yep.
And I got my gun out of my drawer, my revolver out of my drawer, and I went out. And he was already across the road, and I went out the door, and he turned and put the gun on the top of the roof of the car and pointed it at me.
Yo.
Well,
that's crazy.
I got back in the door very quickly.
I was about to say you were very brave, walking out with a revolver.
It's just instinct. These things happen by instinct when you see someone holding up your branch. But he was caught after he did, I think, 41 jobs around Perth, and we all ended up in court.
Yep.
He got 12 years jail.
Yeah. Yeah.
And from that branch, they moved me to the branch in Inaloo. That was my second hold-up.
I'm beginning to see a pattern here, Henry.
I think they like to follow me up. Yeah, that was my second hold-up. A guy came in with a big knife and stood on the counter and demanded money and all.
Okay.
But he also was caught later on, and he ended up in court. He got 10 years jail.
What was the policy back then when it came to, first of all, possession of weapons in a corporate setting, and then second of all, what was the protocol for the actual bank officers? Were they supposed to be compliant, or were they supposed to refuse service? Give us a bit of a picture of how it used to work back then. What the protocols were.
Well, it's much the same as it is now.
Okay.
They were there to service, but only the managers had guns then. And we used to go down to shooting practice in North Perth at a shooting alley down there.
All bank managers have guns. Okay.
Yeah, we had guns. We had revolvers, and we had serviced them shooting practice. And because I've handled guns when I was a teenager, because my father, being a mining engineer in Malaysia, that was during the emergency when the communists were in Malaysia. And he carried guns all the time.
Yeah.
We had guards around our house on the tin mines.
Yep.
Yeah.
With guns. Yeah.
So I was handling and shooting guns when I was a mid-teenager.
Yeah.
And I could shoot pretty well. Guns were taken away after that. When I got to the manager at Inaloo, Yeah, we didn't have guns then.
I was about to say, because I think these days bank managers don't have
No.
guns. In fact, guns have been outlawed.
Oh, yeah.
Nationally.
Yeah, no, that happened a long time ago.
Yeah. Okay.
But in the early days,
Okay.
yes, we carried guns.
Okay.
Or we had them in our drawer.
Okay. What year was that? That City Markets Inaloo kind of period.
I was made manager of Midlands Commercial Bank of Sydney in 1979.
Mm-hmm.
And it was about 1983 that I moved to City Markets. I had guns. I got it. And after 6 months after I was held up, they moved me out.
Okay.
And that would be about 1986.
1986.
The guns were gone by then.
Okay. In these situations, they always talk about something called fight or flight, right? The concept of fight or flight. Like, you either have these two responses. You either run away, right? Or you run towards. It felt like your natural instinct was to run towards. Would that be fair?
Yes, I didn't like people encroaching on my property and pointing a gun at us.
Absolutely.
Holding us up and robbing us. Yeah, but like I said, but you do things out of instinct. And sometimes, in fact, when the cops came to City Markets, they told me, they said, you should never do that. They said,
please don't do that.
Yeah. But it was quite interesting. My wife and two boys were in New Zealand that time, and this was on a Thursday. And on the Friday night, I was flying to New Zealand as well. We got held up on Thursday. And once the tellers pressed the emergency buttons under the counter, within 3-4 minutes, the cop cars were flying up there onto the footpath and everything.
Wow.
All guns all pointed everywhere. And we were on TV. So we were stars on TV, you see, but in the wrong sense of the word.
Unwanted.
And that hold up, my next door neighbor saw it on TV and rang me and said, what's going on? And they knew they were across the road from us in Morley. And they said, look, don't go home tonight, come to our place for dinner. So I did, went there for dinner after everyone moved out and we locked the branch up. And it was about 9 o'clock at night after dinner, she poured a coffee and I had a coffee. And I picked up the cup and my hand was shaking like that. It took that long to hit me. But
it takes a while to kick in, right?
But I never let it get to me. I never let it play on my mind.
Yeah.
Even after the second hold up, I just moved on.
Yeah.
And it's never affected me. But one day I was in Melbourne and I went up to our human resources department and we were talking and I asked them, I said, listen, can I have a look at my file? I said, yes. Brought out my file and I opened it. I looked at it and I thought, wow. On the front cover of my file, written in red, was care involved in 2 holdups. So the bank was concerned. They were monitoring me as well to make sure I was all right.
So you were flagged.
I was all right, yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I've never let it get to me.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of mental stillness, right? That would have helped.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm pretty focused and pretty strong-minded. I am. Yeah, so after that, they made me manager in Inaloo, and from Inaloo, they moved me to a manager at Murray Street, and that was the second biggest branch in the state. During that time, I also spent a short spell up in head office as manager up there.
Yep.
And I handled some of the biggest accounts the bank had in Perth at that time. And from there, they moved me Osborne Park Commercial Centre.
Okay.
To go out there and grow the business. That was a new commercial centre.
Yep.
Spent about 7 years there and we really grew that business. And I kept saying to the bank for a long time to our state managers and executives in these states, the bank should get into Asia. It should get into Asia. That's where business is. A state manager that we had here then took that to Melbourne, and someone in Melbourne listened. He was an executive general manager. He listened. And that's where we set Asian banking up in Western Australia, the States, because they asked me that if we did that, could I set the thing up and run it? I've lived in Asia. for 21 years. I know the Asian culture. I speak Asian languages. So we did. Took me 6 months to set the structure up in the state.
Okay.
Employ the people, get the Asian banking floor set up. And we opened the doors for Asian banking then in October 1999.
First time in NAB history.
In Western Australia.
In Western Australia.
Yeah, because we had an office then.
Okay.
We had an agency office in Singapore and in Hong Kong, if I remember. And there might have been one in Japan, in Tokyo. From the time we opened in October 1999, we never looked back. We made profit from year one. And it just grew and grew and grew. And then the bank opened up branches in the eastern states and in those as well with advice, and attended Asian banking seminars in Melbourne with all the with our other state people to talk about structures and how to do business in Asia.
So at that time, even in the eastern states, there wasn't any Asian banking department. So it really was the first in all of Australia that started in Western Australia.
Then they opened in Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, and all this.
Okay.
And I used to talk to them a lot. They used to ring me a lot to talk about strategies and stuff. Yeah, we grew the business in a big way.
Okay.
In a big way. Okay. And I ended up with 12 staff in Western Australia.
Yep.
And there was a lot of travel. A lot of travel every year.
A lot of flying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the bank then went into other branches. They opened up in Mumbai, opened up in Jakarta, opened up in Ho Chi Minh City. We opened up in Shanghai because we had Beijing office and his agency office. So we ended up in 9 Asian countries. And some of my clients here in WA were big operators around Asia, in China, in Singapore, in Hong Kong. So I traveled a lot. In the restructure of NAB in the later years, they also made me head of NAB's Asian strategy to expand the Asian footprint. There were some challenges in that job, but NAB's Asian banking became the biggest Asian operation as a whole of any bank in Australia. It became it became the largest.
The largest. Yeah. I mean, was there any other bank that had an Asian banking department at that time? Do you remember?
Bank West had.
Bank West had.
And they were the first ones before I set up WA. And when I set up WA, we took a lot of business off them. And the head of their Asian operation, I think he was there for about 12 years. He retired.
Yeah.
Someone else went in. It eventually closed. We just kept growing.
Yeah. Yeah.
CBA tried it. Westpac tried it. And Westpac have got a section now where they do some Asian business.
Okay.
I think all the major banks tried it.
Yeah. Yeah.
All the major banks tried it. And I had an offer to go to one of the banks, major banks, to set up what I did. The offer was very tempting, but I still hadn't finished what I set out to do in NAB. So I declined that offer and I stayed with NAB.
Stay with NAB. Before we move on to the next phase, strategy and beyond, I think a lot of listeners and viewers may have a notional concept of Asian banking, but might not know exactly what it is and how it actually differs to, say, regular banking, right? Can you share in your own view what is Asian banking and in particular in your success story, setting it up for NAB? Like, what are the key milestones, right, that really allowed you to succeed the way that you did?
The biggest thing that I did in NAB, that I focused on, was not retail banking, not mom and dad's loans, home loans, and personal loans.
Okay.
No, I didn't want that. we focused on commercial business, commercial banking and corporate business.
Okay.
Because that's where you make the money in banking. That's where you make the real money. And while you're traveling down that path, of course, you have company directors that have home loans and things. Okay, you're obliged to bring that in. But our focus was commercial business. And that's where we grew. Other banks focused on retail. It never worked. Commercial business put us on the map as an Asian operation. Because I had a lot of clients that just grew, and they had investments here in the state. But they also had big businesses in China, Singapore, Hong Kong,
I see.
Indonesia, and all these places.
Okay.
And every time I traveled across, quite often I took our state manager with us. And one state manager in particular, he was my second mentor. I owe him a lot. And his name was John Boyle. He's not in the bank anymore. He retired. And from state manager WA, he went to state manager, head of China in Shanghai. He was a great man to work with. He supported me in everything that I did in the Asian operation. And I remember one day I went up and spoke to him and said, I want to set up a corporate set profile in Asian operation. And I sat down and I spoke to him for about half an hour. He just sat and listened to me. And after I finished, I asked him, I said, what do you think? He just looked at me and he said, why are you asking me this? I said, well, it's out of courtesy. You're the state manager. He said, and you are the head of Asian banking. He said, if you want to do it, go and do it. And within a matter of 2 years, that corporate set grew to 380 million.
Wow.
And my partner in Asia Link Capital now, I put him in charge of that corporate set. He was from China.
Yeah.
And that was the type of man that I was working for. He was so good. I used to take him to Indonesia, to Singapore, to China and all.
Yeah.
He was great to travel with. And I think that whet his appetite for Asian business as well. So when he finished up as state manager in WA, he was appointed head of China in Shanghai. We still talk. I still stay in touch with him.
You're in touch with him. When one does travel around Asia, right, there seems to be a very different way of doing business. Okay. Different to perhaps what one would experience in Australia or in a Western country. Can you share a little bit about that? And also maybe if you have one or two very memorable experiences, we'd love to hear it.
Our big benefit was I knew the Asian culture. I'd lived in Asia. And everyone that worked for me had to have worked in Asia and lived in Asia and had to know the Asian culture.
Base criteria.
Yes, that's it. Because the Asian culture is a bit different to the Western culture in doing business. Asians, the prominent, respected Asian businessman will never lose face. That is paramount to them. They must maintain face with the public. Because if they don't honor their commitments, a lot of their own people won't even deal with them.
And face, right? Like, what is face? Like, what does face mean? Just really quickly, because some people might not be familiar with that word face. It's a pretty meaningful word.
It is your respect, that you are respected by your peers, by the community in general. You honor your commitments. And you are respected. You are respected as a person to do business with in the Asian community.
Like you have a standing in society.
You have a standing. It is where you stand in society. And that is very important to them. Because if they don't, they just lose personal respect. And every time I brought in a big corporate client, I do research on them, where they came from, whatever it is. And if I found anything that was questionable or I didn't like it, up front I gave it a miss. And that's why in Asian banking, we never had any bad debts.
Okay. So you screen quite rigorously.
Even now that I'm in my own finance business, a lot of those people that I started from scratch have all come across to me because they've said to me, we respect you, we respect the help you've given us, you keep looking after us.
What are some of the flags that typically come, like, when you are doing these type of screenings? Like, is it like money laundering or like?
No, a lot of it is if anything shows up in the searches that we have to do.
Okay.
And we have to do searches.
The KYCs or
No, we do different types of searches.
Okay.
And in the Asian community, a lot of people know everyone. And if I need to talk to someone about something that I'm not too comfortable with, in private, I find out a lot.
A lot of intermediaries that you can call upon.
Yeah, because Asian business people, the good business people, their network and their market is extensive. So they get to be known. Saving face in the Asian community is paramount.
And you deal with ethnicities from all parts of Asia, fair? So it's not just a segment of Asia. For example, you mentioned China, right?
It is the whole of Asia.
All of Asia.
It's the whole of Asia. And our clients were all over Asia. Even now, in my own business, 95% of our clients are Asian, from all over Asia. Again, in our own business now, we have no problem or bad debts.
No bad debts. Yeah.
Even when COVID struck and banks were offering people, look, you can pay interest and you can stop your principal payments and everything. Not one of our clients took that.
Right.
If they had principal and interest payments, they were all kept up to date.
And it's like that relationship, because they care so much about that relationship, right? They won't feel that they can just, can't pay it. Sorry, Henry. Gotta drop you.
No.
Gotta default.
That doesn't happen. You will have some that would fall into categories like that, but we don't have any. It's like the whole community in general.
Yep.
They're the ones you deal with and the ones you don't deal with.
Yep.
I retired from NAB after 51 years, 4 months and 17 days, the longest serving in NAB ever. I retired on the 29th of December 2017.
2017.
So I've been out of there just over 6 years now.
6 years now. Wow. 50 plus years tenure.
51 years, 4 months and 17 days.
I mean, did anybody erect a statue in your honor, Henry?
No, but they were good to me. They've set me up and my family for life.
Yeah.
They've been a very good company to work for.
Yeah.
And when I retired, they told me to arrange a venue and invite whoever I wanted for a farewell dinner. And I had one of my clients' restaurants, the Han Palace.
Yeah.
Booked the whole Han Palace. There were 100 people there.
Yeah.
Past, present, staff, whoever I wanted to invite. And it was a great night. It was a great night. I just say thank you and farewell.
Yeah. At one point in time, you were running teams of up to, 500 plus, right?
Well,
as a head of Asian banking.
Well, I was the head of Asian banking and head of Asian strategy, but our staff numbers around Asia was over 500.
500.
And every time I went to China or Hong Kong or Singapore or Jakarta or whatever, I'd arrange a function to get clients based over there in to meet our general manager and stuff. And so, although we had general managers in the different countries, part of what I did was to try and get clients together so that our branches over there and our general managers and staff over there would have contact with our clients over here that still had businesses over there, so they could get their businesses in Asia and all this.
Yeah.
And that was part of what I did all the time whenever I was overseas.
Yeah. Were there any particular kind of leadership qualities, right, that you or leadership principles that you have kind of, abided by or maybe honed over the years of experience that has kind of boded you well?
The thing that I did regularly was, if we had a big client here from Asia and they had a big operation in China, when I was in China, I would put my feet on their property, go to have a look at their operation, and I did that all over Asia with our clients. So I walked on their businesses overseas. I was in direct contact with them. I saw what they did. I saw how they operated, because it gave us comfort that whatever we did here, there was great fallback positions over there. So all my big clients, I made it a practice, whether it was here or overseas, to walk on their properties
Get
and
out,
to walk on their businesses.
shake those hands, meet the workers.
That's right. And I think that should be a norm in any business, anyone. Because if you don't know what they do and you don't step on their properties, how do you get confidence in supporting them here?
The ivory tower doesn't work. Like, if you just stay in your ivory tower, right? How do you truly know the picture?
Forget it. Every morning when I used to come to work in NAB, in Asian banking, I often didn't come in until 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Because on the way in, I would stop off at a client's place, have a chat to them, have a coffee with them, and then come into work. And we do that now.
Great advice.
In our own business now.
Yep.
Because the bottom line is, if you are not talking to them, someone else is.
Yes.
Another bank is.
Yep. Yeah.
And you must stay close.
Yeah.
Stay in contact with them. And they appreciate you walking on their properties, looking at their businesses, and having general discussions.
Because it's like you are making the time, right? Because time is the most precious thing in the world. Like, especially for highly successful individuals. They know that. They know that for you to come all the way out to their premises, and they may think that they have the biggest operations, but they know there's always a bigger dog out there.
Yeah.
But they still manage to get you to come in, and you said yes, right? I think it means a lot. It means a lot.
It absolutely does. And like I say again, if you don't know your client, how do you grow your confidence in them? No matter how busy I was over there, if someone wanted to see me, I found the time. Whether it's first thing in the morning or the last thing at night.
A lot of late nights.
Whether I get back to the hotel at 8 o'clock or 10 at night, it didn't matter. If I was there and they wanted to meet me, you make yourself available.
Words to live by.
And that's the way we operate even now. Our own finance company now.
Yep. So let's talk about that. So 2017, did you say? Or 16 that you finished up with NAB?
29th of December 2017.
Okay, 17, right. What was that like? So did you have a bit of a break before you kind of started your next journey? Or I have a feeling you didn't really have much of a break. You jumped straight into
When I decided that enough was enough.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to look like the furniture in the bank anymore. I started thinking of what do I want to do next? Because although I left the bank at age 76, under my contract there was no retirement age. And I thought to myself, look, my brain is too active. My body's good.
This still works very well.
I cannot just
Stop.
turn off,
Nope.
watch TV or dig holes in the garden or hit golf balls around the course.
Retirement.
I've got to do something.
Yeah.
I've got to have a purpose. And I've always believed when you get up in the morning, you must have a purpose in mind.
Yeah.
You must have something to do.
Yes.
So I was talking to people and I thought, and my right-hand man in the Asian operation, John Wang, he kept saying to me, because from here I moved him to Melbourne, and Melbourne he went to Brisbane and he worked in the broker divisions over there. And he kept ringing me and saying, boss, get out of the bank. He said, let's start a company as brokers. And he kept hounding me on that for 2 years. So when I decided I put my notice in, I was going to retire, I rang him in Queensland. I said, listen, you kept telling me to get out of banking and be a broker. I said, I'm thinking about it. If I do that, I said, do you want to come and join me? He kept quiet. And after a couple of minutes, I said, listen, are you there? do you want to come and join me? And his words were, boss, you tell me when.
Yeah.
So that's when I started the ball rolling.
Mm.
And when I left the bank, I sat the exams that I had to. I had to join ASIC and MFAA and all the different groups that I had to be a member of. I did the training, sat the exams, which wasn't hard, and I got the license. So I rang him, and from the time I left in December until April, I got our accountant to put the structure in place, the company, the trust, and everything in place. And I started then working out what our approach was going to be, how are we going to work. And then in May, John Wang retired. He left the bank, he resigned, moved the whole family over here. Been going ever since, and it's just growing and growing. And I've said to him now, I said, listen, mate, we don't want to get back into the corporate race anymore. I said, we don't want to get any bigger. Because we've never looked back from day one.
Yep.
And John and I are now accredited with all the mid-tier and top-tier banks in Australia. So whatever we could do in NAB,
you could pretty much do
we can do now.
Yeah, in Asia Link Capital.
Asia Link Capital.
Now, you shared some like pretty successful achievements that you had, ever since you broke it out on your own, right? Some really big numbers. Can you share a little bit more? Some of the very big deals, memorable deals that you have done so far, as much as you can, of course.
I won't. Yeah. I can't mention names and all, but I shouldn't mention names. But yeah, in the biggest deals that we've done, or the biggest numbers that I've been in control with, would be well over 100 million.
Wow. One transaction.
Individual companies. And even now too, we do a lot of big deals. We do in Asian banking now. In Asia Link Capital now, we specialize in commercial, corporate, and big business. And we got deals going through now. I think if everything was approved now, we'd be talking 60 million.
60 million.
And then very few brokers that are in that sort of a space in commercial. Because a lot of brokers, their bread and butter is home loans.
Retail.
Sort of stuff. Yeah, retail.
Yeah.
We would do the odd retail. I think we got 3 going through now that John Wang's looking after, because I don't want to touch. I don't want to be involved in retail. He's the computer whiz, so he can do all that. But I'm talking big developments.
A lot of them are property developments.
Property developments, because we did a lot of property. Asians primarily don't have superannuation like you and I do. Their superannuation is property. Property income, rentals, big property portfolios all over Asia. That's typical of Asians. And now that I'm out of the bank, I'm doing a few property developments myself. We just finished one last year with 3 other people that joined us, and 14 units in Belmont, all done and dusted and sold in October. And now 2 of my closest friends, we're doing 3 double-story townhouses in Belmont, which will start in construction in a couple of months.
Great timing though, like especially in this market.
This would have been this sort of, after we sold the 14 units, I bought this property in Belmont, and I asked my 2 closest friends, and they are in construction, or they're in property as well. They know property like the back of their hands.
Yeah.
They wanted to join me, so they said yep, so they're taking a 3rd share each, but the timing couldn't have been better.
Yeah.
Even if we keep these 3 double-story townhouses, and they're turnkey, upstairs and downstairs, self-contained, different entrances and everything. We'll see. We'll decide when it's finished.
And that's the thing as well, right? Like, people say you got to prepare, right, for different like points in your life, right? But at some point, luck, timing plays a huge part in whether you succeed or not.
Yes.
Can you share how you feel about the concept of, luck and timing, and how you feel about it?
It's a case of being in the right place at the right time. The 14 units that we built in Belmont, next to the Belmont Shopping Centre, the timing was rubbish. We bought that as soon as I left the bank. Because in the bank, I wasn't allowed to do all that because I got conflict of interest. And I'm very mindful of that in my job in the bank. But as soon as I left the bank with these other friends, we bought property next to the shopping center, and we bought another one in the next street to build multi-story. And the timing on those weren't good. Because while we were building the 14 units, we got hit with COVID and everything went down, the downturn.
Yes.
So we made profit on it when we sold, but not the profit that we should have made. And the one in the next street that we bought for a multi-story, we were then going to do childcare. But in the end, the way the market was, it became too difficult. So we sold that as a package. With the approvals now, childcare, we sold it as a package to Singaporeans. It's a case of hopefully being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
But now with these ones that I'm doing on the other side of the Belmont Shopping Center, I don't think it could be better. I don't think the timing could be better.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's any special philosophy to it. It's just a case of you make a decision to move and to buy, and if everything works in your favor.
And I think that's important, right? To actually make a decision. Because nothing happens if you don't move.
No, that's right. Exactly.
Nothing happens.
No. And we bought this property in Belmont for cash.
Yeah.
We will do the construction for cash. At the end of the day, even if we don't sell and we want to keep and rent, again, it's a plus. But yeah, now that I'm out of the bank and I can do these sort of things, I think we'll continue doing it.
Yeah.
And my two friends that are in this one, they're two great people. We even talked about it. Listen, when this one's half finished, maybe we're looking about buying the next one. If the opportunity is there and the market is there,
go for it.
We'll look at it.
Yep.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, you make your own destiny. You control your own destiny.
Yes.
You make your decisions, whether they're right or wrong, and along the way, there will be some downs. You can't be up all the time. There will be some hiccups.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if the pluses are better than the minus, you stay in front.
Yep.
But you control your own destiny.
Yep.
And that's one thing I've done all my life. I will never let someone control my destiny for me.
Absolutely.
I control my own destiny.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think everybody should do that. Because at the end of the day, opportunities surface from time to time. And although you might be specifically trained for a certain thing with great degrees and all, if an opportunity turns up, and I've said this in a presentation that I've done for the Chinese Chamber not so long ago, and the hall was full.
Yeah.
And I said to them, no matter how old you are or how young you are, if youth are not really happy in what you are doing and you see another opportunity, and if you believe in it, do it and give it 100%. Because it's better to live and to say, I gave it my best shot, rather than to live and say, Jesus, I should have tried that. I should have tried that. Because I never ever thought after banking 51 years that I'd be doing what I'm doing now, being a broker.
Being a broker.
And I set the company and everything up from scratch. I've never done this before.
That's your first entrepreneur
Ever.
roadshow.
Ever. And John Wang and I haven't looked back. We haven't looked back. But I'm now 82. And I started this at 76. And I said in my speech, you're never too old to try what you want.
I mean, like, this is the reason why, people really needed to hear your story, right? Like, you defy the odds of what people think someone successful should be, should act, should actually feel, and at what age. Do you know what I mean? I think it's very commendable. Like, very commendable. I think you have something very special, and absolutely.
My wife says to everyone, they keep asking us, when are you going to retire? And my wife said, I don't think you'll ever retire. And my sister says to me, she says, how much more do you want to do? And how much more do you want?
Yeah.
And I said, it's not how much more I want. I said, with NAB, my whole family is more than comfortable after 51 years and being a senior executive. I said, but I always said to people, and I always believe, you keep doing what you're doing while you can. Because the day will come when you can't do it anymore.
Even when you want to up here.
That's right.
Right.
So the day will come when I can't do it. But while I can, even playing sport, I'll do it as long as I can, and my body allows me to do it, and my mind allows me to do it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you just played with state players last night at badminton, so I think you have a fair way to go, my friend.
Fair way to go.
So,
I tell you what, if you were in my body, if you were in my body now, it would be a bit different.
A bit different, is it? Fair enough.
I got out of bed.
I was trying to give you some props, Henry. Trying to give you a bit of a high five there.
I got out of bed very slowly.
Okay.
But by this afternoon,
roll down.
It'll be all right.
It'll be all right. Where can people find out more about you? So tell the listeners and the readers and the viewers, right? Where can they find out more about Asia Link Capital?
They can find me personally on LinkedIn.
Yep.
What I've done, my past things. They can go into our website on Asia Link Capital.
Okay.
There are profiles there for myself and my partner, John Wang,
yep.
and what we do and everything. So, you can go into our website and onto LinkedIn for me personally. Yeah.
Okay.
Because on LinkedIn, my background's and all that.
Yeah.
To be honest, I don't even know who put it on LinkedIn. I didn't do it.
The photo's all right. Whoever did, put a pretty decent photo of you.
I have got no idea who put all that on for me because I didn't do it. So it's come from somewhere. So.
Yeah.
And in fact, it's quite interesting. So many of my past friends in Malaysia were trying to get in touch with me.
Yes.
And they didn't know where I was or what my contacts were.
Yeah.
And they found me on LinkedIn.
It definitely works. And look, we'll put...
Even my own band boys that I used to play in the band
they went into LinkedIn.
Playing in the nightclub.
Yes.
I got a couple of phone calls and emails.
Yes.
Where do you get in touch with me? Oh, I found you on LinkedIn.
Look, we'll put your details in the show notes, right? So that people can find you, including the website address, and and they can definitely learn all about Asia Link Capital. And
y'all got my card and all the emails and all of that. We'll keep doing what we're doing for as long as we can, and as long as you keep enjoying it.
That is right. That's the thing, right? If you wake up and you're not completely committed, completely excited, right? Looking forward to whatever's coming on that day, right?
In the end, I asked myself, do I need to do this anymore? I loved what I did, but after 51 years, you get tired and you get a bit worn out. And I needed a break. And that's the 3-month break that I took. Yep. Went to New Zealand, spent time with my in-laws and all this, were in their 90s and all. Came back and said, okay, well, I've got to start getting the company set up to do broken. But I needed that break.
Henry, I mean, I'm just looking at the time here. It flew by. Right?
It has.
Yeah. I just want to say thank you so much. Right.
I'd like to thank you for inviting me and for doing this, because we've known each other for a while, and I think this opportunity has been a good one. It's great.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And so for all the listeners and the viewers, right, you can check out all the details in the show notes and description. Thank you so much again, Henry, for coming on to the show.
You're welcome.
All the listeners and viewers, I will catch you next time on the next episode of The Way with Cheech Foo. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you a lot. I appreciate it.